It is a pleasure to meet you at this opportunity to add more brief on what concern industry's development on a direct connection to the most important part concern the financial authorities in federal government and United States Congress, Senate and House of Representatives, which is the federal budget deficit, and how to generate more growth on revenues, which is the main focus and the main solution. More revenues takes much pressure on the deficit gaps between revenues and expenditure. And if you notice, since the late 1989 to present moment, the national debt ceiling kept on a rapid increase, which reflects on a number of things. The most important part is the investment position. It is very important to focus on the growth on revenues. Industry's development is the main framework to increase revenues. There are more than 226 main and derivative industries. Number of things got my attention on the similar subject. Housing and Urban Development Department concern direct and indirect with government-sponsored enterprise before and after Treasury Department took over Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Let me just put it in a very simple way to understand the situation. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, and other institutions that included on the act that created government-sponsored enterprises, they do not represent other than less than 0.2 of the economy. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, and other the agricultural on what concern with the agricultural and farms loans, other institutions, about 12 financial institutions. They represent less than 0.2% of the U.S. economy, but they have a responsibility of more than half of the national debt, which means there is number of things needs to get an attention. And do not remember, their focus or their work depends on issuance of securities, not income growth cycle. The real income growth cycle is a different track than the securities, the issuance of securities on those government enterprises. It is very important to focus on the economy structure and economy structure enhancement, especially the financial industry and the financial services, which defines the economic activities of the U.S. economy. It needs more attention. $26 trillion immediate growth. It does maintain a number of directions, including the government-sponsored enterprises and their total clearance of their debt, which is about $8 trillion debt. It does include the debt interest, but it is an urgent, necessary step or solutions to take place as fast as possible. Immediate growth, $26 trillion on U.S. Financial industry. It does maintain a number of things, and it does connect Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, and other agricultural financial institutions to the economy and to states' economies. At this moment, without getting into details, a solution it does give much of range to the government-sponsored enterprises who work on issuance of securities. This is a very important part, but later on, structured finance it does come as a financial alternative, not main source of income, which is the main focus through the entire industries, including the diversified investment industry, which directs to Wall Street and companies on Wall Street and other companies. It's a very, but it does get to the those economic structure enhancement later after an immediate solution, which is very, very necessary, and it does put number of things back on a good direction to too many areas, including the entire 226 main and derivative industries, and it does connect U.S. economic structure to economy macroeconomics, which includes the states, to economy microeconomics, which includes cities and businesses and their financial structures, and from there it does lead to growth on gross domestic product, and from there it gets back on the with courage and in forms of tax cuts, forms of innovation, and forms of any kind of adjustment to increase the existed growth or more another level of growth towards the economy structure. And in those two directions, from the economy structure to the gross domestic product, and from gross domestic product to economy structure, there will be financial networks, there will be financial tools, and at this moment U.S. economy works on 2% of total financial tools, which is very, very important to connect the economy to the more financial networks, more financial tools to multiply the present gross domestic product from 15.6 to beyond $100 trillion growth. And solutions, list of solutions includes each solutions not less than $26 trillion growth. It is important to focus on the economy structure enhancement on what concern industries development, which starts with a number of industries related to the financial industry, and it does lead to much of contract and contracting through the levels, national level, state level, cities level, and businesses levels, to maintain more contracts, more contracting, to increase the economic activities, which is the main source of the financial services, which does not mix between issuance of securities and the real income growth cycle, which is two different tracks, needs more focus, and the main function of those government-sponsored enterprises needs more attention. It's not just lending as any other institutions. It's a number of things needs to get with financial risk. It's not just lending on issuance of securities within two cycles, the financial risk cycle and the securities cycle, and I explained it in a previous message. How does the financial risk? It leads to credit risk, and it does lead to interest rate risk, and it does lead to liquidity risk, which is the most important part between the issuer and those who purchase the securities. The liquidity risks, it leads to operational risks, to a default risk. The liquidity risk, it leads to a default risk, which leads to operational risk. From there, it does bring another level of the cycle, which is the settlements risks, to direct to another level on the cycle, the financial risk cycle, the value at risk, and it does bring the commodities. If there is a commodities market with much better structure, things works much better with more growth. If it's not available with higher hedging risk, it does not bring that much, and it does keep on the cycle to another level, which is the volatility risk, and it does bring the number of either they get acquired or they get either come to the merger and acquisition level, or what comes on FDIC take over financial institutions. And it is very clear, year 2008, year 2009, year 2010, year 2011, year 2012, and even year 2013 received number of financial institutions went on FDIC take over those financial institutions, which means real limitations on the financial services, which means limitations on the economic activities not defined as supposed to. The main focus of the conclusion, the economy structure enhancement need more attention, more focus, to put number of things. The best part is to start with $26 trillion. It does put dots on letters. It does maintain number of things on what concern the financial industry. Then other things comes later, the data information economy, the enhancement of the financial markets, commodities markets, the industrial development, which relates to trade transformation, import and export transformations, more growth to importers and exporters, with more levels of growth between 4 to 6 growth levels to back any companies at any financial difficulties. This part is almost briefed on what concerns industrial development and the necessity to increase the revenues to take the economy away from the national debt ceiling increases. Since late 1989 to present moment, it became a cycle of national debt increases, which is not necessary if the economic structure enhanced to put the resources allocation, resources management, financial management, and investment management to lead to a huge growth on the investment position, domestic and in foreign range. And it does give the structured finance, the issuance of securities, it is range and main function investment. It does work on investment, and it does bring back the amount that on borrowed for the on those kind of transactions. The other part of the brief message, it is a pleasure to have or to become from a background that Arab, African, European. It is my pleasure to my family gets back to Arab, African, European. It does give a number of directions to become part of these cultures with forward directions. Let me just take part of those. As you know, the advanced economies in Europe or in Asia, part of Asia, and United States economy, North America, part of South America, emerging economies, part of Middle East countries, emerging economies. Those, especially advanced economies, it takes hours, fewer days to get back on their surplus and clear their debt. contracts and contracting, able to clear their entire debt in hours and fewer days. Emerging economies possibly takes much more, but developing economies, they take much time to get back to a number of things and maintain it to another level. It does take takes much more time than other advanced economies and emerging economies, and this is the part of the of this message. Another reminder, if I say Arab, African, American, tomorrow, February 12th, is the anniversary of the National Association for Advancement of Colored People in the United States. Was on 1909, February 12th. It is important to let them know. It is important to connect them to either where the colored people came from. The continent Africa, well known, it's in it's on a cycle of accumulation of not on a good shape compared to Europe, Asia, America, and even North America or Central America or South America. It does need much of attention. Number of countries in Asia, but it does need their understanding and communication with those areas. They need to get much closer to understand what's the image of the Americans in those areas. It is not just visits. The structure of their countries needs much of attention. What does European mean to them? What does Americans mean to them? What does it's a kind of exchange of culture. They need to become part of it. It's not just necessary to come with background from there, but they need to get connected. But before that, there are much of work needs to get done in United States. You just heard a number of things. The financial authorities need to get connected. Solutions offered to His Honor President of the United States. Their Honor Congress, Senate, and House of Representatives visited and offered a number of solutions. If it's a Democratic party, well, communication made through the state of California, city of Los Angeles as an example or start towards much of growth on cities, commodities markets and financial markets. If it's a Republican thing, or it's not a Republican thing, it's not a democratic thing, it's a democracy. But solutions brings everybody together towards huge growth. No need for financial difficulties. There is no financial difficulties, just how to get started on those solutions. The world in need to U.S. economy, trade, imports and exports, and too many other things, development. U.S. aid means much to a number of areas around the world. It does mention Africa. This is an opportunity to the national associations for advancement of colored people to focus with more hope to those areas, more growth, but it does need more attention. U.S. economy entitled to an immediate $26 trillion. Their Honor briefed visit made to Los Angeles, a letter delivered to the mayor of the city. At any time solutions starts, city of Los Angeles entitled to an increase on city budget growth between $2 trillion to $12 trillion, $6 trillion on average. There are about 400 cities around the country entitled to either similar amount, similar growth amount, or not that far less from the amount. which brings huge growth, at least $200 trillion growth increase. US economy is much bigger than anybody can imagine. It is not US economy, it is US economies to bring the grand picture of the economy. If the financial industry only capable or able to generate $26 trillion in 24 hours, just imagine how many other industries, main and derivative industries, not less than $226 trillion. Much of industries, farm products industry, solar panel, or you can say the energy industry, main industry, renewable energy industry, which brings geothermal energy industry, brings solar panel industry, brings hydropower industry, brings it's number of huge number of main and derivative industries. The financial structure needs to be enhanced, and that is part of the solutions. Those solutions needs to started as fast as possible to bring growth on revenues. Main focus to the problem of the federal budget deficit is the increase on revenues to avoid major cuts on this year, federal budget 2013, or another the next budget, or through the entire state's gross domestic product and state's budget and their cities' budgets. If you notice in previous issues, I mentioned the just a chart about the employment and unemployment compared city of Pittsburgh with the U.S. economy, and you noticed how much cuts made on government, federal, states, and cities. It does. Solutions lead to more employment, not more cuts, and it is necessary, urgent, as fast as possible. His Honor briefed, and they become much comfortable with those solutions, but fewer things needs to get done, and it's a reminder about the government-sponsored enterprises, creation of the Congress. But at this moment, it works according to Treasury Department, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Other Fannie Mae, and they work on their according to the Act created those institutions. Those government-sponsored enterprises do not represent other than 0.2% of the total of the U.S. economy. They could bring much of growth, but more attention needs to be, more attention and effort needs to focus on why they have more than half of the U.S. national debt. It is solvable, but that's just an example. The two tracks, main real income track and issuance of securities track. Their situation is different. It could get reviewed for huge growth, and that is part of the what the immediate $26 trillion growth does. It is a pleasure to conclude the brief message with more hope to get the immediate attention of the financial authorities in the federal government, Federal Reserve districts, United States Congress, Senate and House of Representatives, and on a specific Senate Banking, Housing and Urban Affairs Committee, and the Financial Services House of Representatives. Much of growth needs to get done, and in addition to that, the committee that take attention for the government-sponsored enterprises, there are a number of things that could get done through at least 6 committees on each Senate and House of Representatives. The most important part to become part of huge growth is to have a division for industries development in the United States Congress. It's no doubt, it is very important, urgent and necessary. They become part of or they become aware of any increases. They become part of the adjustment of how much growth to generate on contracting, domestic and foreign range. That's the energy of the U.S. economy needs more attention. We have huge economy, more than 226 main and derivative industries. Two-thirds of those industries don't have any apps to define their range, their work duration, or the range of number of things to come to the better levels of growth to each main or derivative industry. The main focus of the brief message, the industry's development and how to multiply the gross domestic product, which means rapid increase on federal budget revenues through the entire states, national level, state level, cities level, and businesses level. Much of growth is waiting to be announced, and much of good news to their honor, just their ears to become just quiet listener, and they become much happier and on a comfortable zone, far from questions of cuts and those kind of things. Instead, they focus on how to increase the growth and how to adjust it through contracts and contracting, to define what does advanced economies means to a domestic range and to foreign range, and get the economy on two cycles, growth cycles, from the economy structure towards gross domestic product, and from gross domestic product to economy structure through economy, macroeconomics, financial structure, and through the economy, microeconomics, financial structure, with more financial networks, with more financial tools on the commodities markets, on the financial markets, to increase the gross domestic product, and from there tax cuts comes to encourage for more growth towards the gross domestic product growth cycle. Thank you very much, and it is a pleasure to become part of those growth as fast as possible. Another repeat to Happy New Year with less financial obligations, and everybody knows each minute passes brings more than $2.4 million to the financial obligations. It could get clear in 24 hours with more surplus than the present total national debt, and with total clearance to the federal budget deficit. That is the main objective: growth and network of opportunities. And there will be no more FDIC takeover, and instead more economic activities, more financial services, more financial institutions, either on their capital structure or on their number through the entire states. Thank you very much, and Happy New Year.